They told you divorce was painful. They didn't tell you it was profitable. Welcome to the $50 billion industry that feeds on male pain. Courts, lawyers, custody experts, all cashing in while you're crumbling.
Lawyers, court fees, mediators, custody evaluators, they're all making money while couples stay locked in battle.
This isn't a breakup. It's a financial ambush dressed in legal paperwork.
These courts, they're transactional machines. They're not healing spaces. They focus on facts, not on the feeling.
If you're a man walking into divorce court without a strategy, you're already bleeding. Let's stop the bleeding now.
Divorce isn't just painful emotionally. It's weaponized, it's monetized, and systematized.
Have you ever wondered what masculinity even is in the modern era? Are you ready to move beyond the macho bully or the soy boy archetypes? I'm Marc Azoulay, and this is the Men's Therapy Podcast. Together, we'll explore how neuroscience, Jungian psychology, and Buddhist philosophy can transform your life, your marriage, and your business. Are you ready to deep dive into the minds of men? Let's begin. Marc Azoulay here, and we're back for another solo show. So today we're going to talk about the toxic side of divorce, and specifically the divorce industry. How kind of in many ways the cards are stacked against you. And it takes primers such as this one you're about to listen to, as well as the help of a therapist or a supportive group of men, to help you overcome what is a pretty nasty system. I think anything that takes something that's very emotional or even spiritual and makes it legal and administrative creates a lot of friction. And I don't think our culture handles divorce well at all, right? And we're not just talking about lawyers. We're talking about reality TV shows that glorify it, social media, the gossip mill that seems all too active these days. We're talking about how there's so much toxicity around the idea of divorce, and it can get really confrontational really fast. So, our first show, we had a positive spin. We talked about how to rebuild your life after divorce. And this time we're going to talk about some hard truths around the industry. Not as a way to scare you, right, or even be a hater, but to just help you feel prepared as you go into this. So, divorce isn't just painful emotionally. It's weaponized, it's monetized, and systematized. And men, we're often the ones paying the price, financially, emotionally, and psychologically. It's not a conspiracy theory, right? It's a business model. And we're going to break down how it profits from your pain, and more importantly, how to take your power back. So the industry, from best estimates, is over $50 billion. And that includes lawyers, that includes mediation, that includes the court system, that includes rebuilding processes. It even includes therapy, if I'm being honest, right? There's so much money in this divorce industry. And it is unfortunate that is often a place where there can be so much scamming, right, and gouging. When people are at their lowest point emotionally, often they can be taken advantage of. So the average contested divorce costs somebody $15,000 to $30,000 per person. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's a car for some people, right? That is a lot of money to be able to pay right out the gate. And that's not including child support or alimony, right? That's including just the cost of going through the divorce. And it's all part of, lawyers, court fees, mediators, custody evaluators, all that kind of stuff. They're all making money while couples stay locked in battle. And they're incentivized by trauma and drama. Less than 5% of divorce cases go to trial, but they generate a disproportionate amount of revenue for the court system. And they kind of encourage, hourly billing encourages complexity. So the more conflict, the more money is being made. So what does that tell us, right? That tells us that it's more beneficial to work ahead of the process, right? Through something like therapy, premature mediation, a prenup agreement, right? Something where you're able to move through this amicably with your partner so it doesn't have to become something that is so expensive and emotionally draining. So why do men often end up on the losing end? There are significant systemic biases in customony, alimony, and asset division. There's a lot of talk about male privilege, and we believe that is real here at MTO. We're not going to sugarcoat that. We actually have a blog that I wrote on that a couple months back about male privilege and what it looks like. But what I mentioned in that blog is something that is not talked about, is the other side of the coin. The idea that we often have things that are detriments because we're men. There's so much emphasis on us being, the enemy or being cheaters or having unfair advantages for being men. And while we do have some advantages, we also have burdens. And it doesn't show up anywhere more clearly than it does in the divorce system. So in about 80% of divorce cases in the US, mothers are awarded primary custody. Right? So for a lot of guys, even if it's joint custody, we're getting kind of the unfavorable ones. You get like every other weekends and holidays, or you get summers, which in the beginning might feel like a relief, but you're losing those critical moments of your kids' time. You're getting them during vacations, which are fun, but you're losing that time for childhood development. You're losing those little micro moments. You're losing getting them ready for school in the morning. You're losing picking them up after they fall. Those are the moments that really matter for childhood, not just the vacations and the fun times. So being at, less than 20% of men getting primary custody, and usually in those cases because, the woman, the female partner is MIA, the mother is gone. Maybe there's a drug addiction involved, or maybe she's left the country or has given up custody. So it's very rare. Also, when it comes to alimony, men pay 97% of alimony awards, right? Despite increasing gender equality in the workplace. Yes, men make more than women. That is true. But do 90% of men, 97% rather, of men make more? I don't think so. And I think that there's still a significant bias going on where men are more likely to be paying alimony. I think being, a stay-at-home mom is not really considered. Different streams of income or family wealth are not really considered. So as a man, it's something to really watch out for, right? Is how much are you going to be on the hook for things like this? Courts often assume, I think it comes from a bias where they assume that men are less nurturing, or less essential to daily parenting. Again, they see men as like the fun parent, not as the critical parent. And one of the many missions of MTO is to make fatherhood cool. And to show that masculine love and masculine parenting is just as important as feminine parenting. It's different, sure, it's significantly different, but I do think men need both masculine and feminine energies to have healthy children. So this provider protector narrative that a lot of men fall into, it's often turned against us. We find ourselves penalized for it because when we spend our time, sacrificing our family time to get a better job and to, work outside the home, that in divorce ends up meaning that we're getting less time of custody because we're seen as not as critical and higher financial obligation. So it's important when looking at a family planning. I mean, one, whether you're going to plan on getting divorced or not, right? Is like spend time with your kid and develop a work-life balance. But if you do go all in on provider protector and that ends up, blowing up in your face, you're going to be on the hook for even more. And that identity that made you valuable becomes where you start to feel rationalized, the rationalization for your marginalization, right? That thing that you were using to build your sense of self becomes chains and burdens at the end. Also, if you're emotionally vulnerable, you're in an exploitable position, right? So if you're emotionally unprepared, there's a chance that you're going to act out. And it's an ugly truth, but we got to talk about it. Men's emotions can be violent. And we're not just talking physically violent. Oh, that is critical. We're talking, emotionally violent. We're talking screaming, intimidating, punching a hole in the wall, calling, your ex 100 times, showing up at their house, stalking, right? During this time, if you do any of those because you're emotionally vulnerable, you are fucked, right? That's going to be seen as predatory behavior. And that's grounds for not just divorce fees, but now you're talking a civil suit. Now you're talking maybe even a criminal suit, right? The idea here is that we need to get men mastering their emotions beforehand so that they're able to deal with the high intensity and don't lash out in the wrong way,
Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you wanted to open up, but you were afraid that it wouldn't be taken well? You ask yourself, what's the point? Nothing's going to change anyway. So you do what you always do. You push it down, numb out the pain with a drink, a night out, or pornography. I've been there myself, and I know that men lack the outlets for emotional expression, which is why I founded Men's Therapy Online, a healing hub for men's mental health. If you've been knocked on your ass or just crave meaningful connection, join Men's Therapy Online, a community of men who just get it. We offer individual therapy, men's groups, and powerful retreats, all led by licensed therapists. At Men's Therapy Online, we will help you to get back on your feet and take your life to the next level. Start your journey today at menstherapy.online.
So men are 2.5 times more likely to avoid therapy than women post-divorce. they don't get the help that they need. And because of that, they're more likely to lash out. And like I was saying earlier, if you lash out, that's when the courts get involved and when even more money and time is on the line. Things like suppressed grief and shock lead them open to poor legal decisions and manipulation by their partner or by the industry. So it's really important to stay grounded going into this so it doesn't blow up in your face. On the other side of the coin, we talk a lot about nice guys on the show. And for a lot of nice guys, they fall into this guilt and shame thing. They fall into a place where they feel like they don't deserve to have any kind of, equality with their partner. They feel as though they failed at marriage or their identity has fallen away. And we often see men kind of over conceding in negotiations. We don't see it as something where it is truly at that point it becomes adversarial. It's like, I'll give her whatever she needs as long as she's happy. That's the nice guy. That's like the last nail in the coffin of the nice guy thing. It often comes from a place of wanting to avoid conflict and ignoring long-term consequences. I encourage you, please do not take this stance because it can lead to something where, in the moment it might feel like you're avoiding a conflict, but 5, 10, 15 years down the line, it can significantly impact your relationship with your ex because of all that resentment, and more importantly, the relationship with your children because of, really mismanaged custody agreements. The idea is that family court, what we're talking about, is not designed to help you heal. There's no mental health support built into the system. In fact, sometimes it's discouraged because it feels like another expense or another cost. Of course, I'm biased because I'm a therapist, but I got to say, please find yourself a therapist or a group or something that can help you deal with your mental health. There's no, standard mental health screening for parents during custody battles for both sides. So it's something that you may have to request. And also the court-appointed professionals, they lack trauma training or bias awareness. So they might say and do things that set you off. So again, if you are able to be fully resourced by a therapist, you're able to heal, right? These courts, they're transactional machines. They're not healing spaces. They focus on facts, not on the feeling. And while that may be important and it is critical in a court, if you don't deal with your feelings, they're going to leak out, right? And men are often told to be reasonable and their feelings are not being validated. Many men that I've worked with, they feel betrayed, they feel alienated, they feel like they've been victims of emotional abuse or stonewalling, they feel touch deprived, right? And it's important to start to talk about and heal these issues. Something else that is becoming more and more common, unfortunately, it's one of the stats that are going up, is alienation, gaslighting, and false allegations. I think, one of the unfortunate side effects of the Me Too movement was there are many men being falsely accused of rape, being falsely accused of abuse, falsely accused of addiction. And while I do think by and large it is important to listen to women and trust women and hear what they have to say, we also need to be following up. And unfortunately, many of the court proceedings don't quite do that. Some of these things, because they're emotional in nature, are very difficult to prove. And divorce tend to focus over towards the female perspective. So it's important to have your ducks in a row and have a therapist to be able to back you up and provide documentation if necessary. So parental alienation, it affects about 13% of divorced families, which is disproportionately targeting fathers. And what I mean by that is, you say it in a simpler way, is that about 13% of the kids are not going to talk to their dad ever again. And that can be, accentuated by gaslighting from the mother, as well as false allegations. So this alienation, unsurprisingly, right, when studied, increases depression, suicidal thoughts, and substance use in men. So it is really critical to be present during the custody negotiations and be able to have a whatever kind of functional relationship is with your ex. To make sure that your narrative doesn't get weaponized from your ex-partner, right? It can create a devastating impact when it does occur. And unfortunately, I've seen it occur. It can create a loss of custody, a damage to your reputation in your community, and a legal entrapment, right? This idea that you have to prove that you're not that asshole, that you're not that person, kind of like guilty until proven innocent. I've worked with a number of men who have been accused of being, addicts or abusers, and they have to come to therapy basically to make sure that they're sane, So it is really critical to, again, if you're in therapy ahead of time or you have a good track record, you can do things like taking UAs, right, like urine analysis, right, or breathalyzers ahead of time. You can get testimony from, friends, family, community members. things that can help you not be targeted as the bad person. So basically, fear is sold as a strategy, right? Like many men are told, not just from legal professionals, but from their community members, that you can't trust their ex, that they'll lose their kids unless they do X, Y, and Z. They're being taught to monitor their ex. They're being taught to, assume that she's out there cheating on them. While this can be true, do not buy into this, because it creates those lashing out behaviors that we talked about, right? Stalking, harassing, over texting, things like that. It's important to stay grounded, stay on target, and make it to that custody date. So, say you make it there. Unfortunately, there's often a hidden cost to winning, right? Even if it's a favorable verdict, it can leave men broken. Oftentimes, men can feel burnt out. They can feel emotionally detached from their family or even their children, and they can feel that their relationships have been significantly and irreparably damaged. So part of rebuilding, and you go back to our first show, where we talked about that in a lot more detail, is starting to pick up the pieces and build a new life. We've also seen that divorce can mimic some PTSD symptoms. Men can be hypervigilant. They can emotionally numb, or they can cause isolation. Many men can have flashbacks to bad fights or replaying the court case over and over again in their head. I'm saying this just to help normalize it, and also encourage you to seek therapy or talk to somebody if you do experience this, because it is critical to start to recover and heal on that mental, emotional level so you can be the best person that you can be. And then the very last thing that you should be doing, kind of to talk practically, is build your emotional and legal support team. So combine your legal strategy with therapist to have higher resilience and to have a better outcome overall. Work on both the logistical and the emotional. Things like support groups, brotherhood, and trauma-informed care are game changers. They're ways that you can navigate this to the best of your ability and avoid paying more from your time and your energy and your emotions in the future. And then lastly is start to rebuild your voice. Do things like journaling. Start joining a group. Find a mentor. Rebuild your identity and stop letting shame run the show. Because if you're in those emotions, not only is it going to blow up in your face, but unfortunately, there will be people and institutions that will take advantage of that. So stay grounded, stay on target, and get the help that you need. Thank you for tuning in. I know this was kind of a somber one. It showed some of the risks of going through divorce without proper support, but I do hope that it can be a wake-up call to at least one man out there to encourage you, hey, reach out. We're here for you. We want to help you navigate this to the best of your ability. So thank you again for tuning in, and we'll see you next week, another episode of the Men's Therapy Podcast.
Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review. And don't forget to visit menstherapy.online to learn more about the work that we are doing to support and inspire men. Until next time, keep moving forward.